All right, so we are now live. Okay. So we'll give a couple minutes for people to start signing on. We'll go ahead and start at about 11:05. So far, we got 11 attendees so far. Got 14. Hi, everyone who's signed on. We're going to go ahead and get started in the next 4 minutes. Okay, so far we have 23 who have joined us. We're going to go ahead and get started in the next 3 minutes. Sorry, guys. Okay, we're gonna give a couple people 3 more minutes to join. Two more minutes to join. One more minute for a couple people to start joining, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Alrighty, guys, it's 11:05. I'm going to go ahead and get started with today's meeting. Thank you all for joining. We appreciate having you guys all here on a Saturday. So for today, our virtual MAP-edu community meeting is focused on emergency preparedness, and today is November 21st, 2020. So, moving forward for today's agenda, what we have going on is some very exciting things. Um, right here, you'll see at the top, meet some of our Monrovia police officers. Unfortunately, our officers got called out to a call, so they might be joining us towards the end of the class. But who you would be meeting is our training officer, Agent Travis Ortega, and our newest sworn officer, Nicole Spada. And then we're going to go ahead and jump into emergency preparedness and a Q&A with our emergency preparedness coordinator, Suzanne Dobson, and our CERT volunteer, Mark Harvis. And then after that, we are going to go ahead and have our city manager updates and Q&A with our city manager, Dylan Feek. And then we're going to go ahead and give you guys some map updates. And this is going to be with your map team. That's going to be myself and Lauren Davidsmeyer. So moving forward, unfortunately, because they are on call, we're going to have to come back to this. But right now, I'd like to introduce our emergency preparedness coordinator, Suzanne Dobson, and she's going to take charge of the rest of the meeting and give you guys all a bunch of great information.
Suzanne? Hi, everybody. Oh, it's not letting me share because you're sharing.
Okay, go ahead and start.
There we go. I think it'll work now. There we go. So while we're getting started, I'm Susie Dobson. I am the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, like Alex said. I'm a Monrovia native. I grew up here and I graduated from the high school. If my name is familiar but you don't know me, it might be because you know my husband who teaches at the high school, or my son who is at the high school and went through Monrovia schools. So emergency preparedness for Monrovia is very personal because it's my hometown and it's where I still live. And that just gives it a little more meaning for me. I'm a professional worrywart. That's really what an emergency preparedness coordinator is. And if you ask my family, it fits. That's pretty much who I am. So the Monrovia Fire Department joined the Listos California, or California for All program, and it enabled us to get some grant funding to support our CERT program. And as part of that, they also shared this training with us. And it's really a nice new training with some fresh ideas and focuses more on being prepared and being resilient, which is really your ability to bounce back. Instead of spending a lot of money, this program looks at what are the things you can do that don't cost a lot. And it rolled out with Governor Newsom starting the program not long after after he came to office. He put in legislation that passed, and that money's been spread throughout the state. And so that's where kind of the backing for this program comes from. They're trying to engage over 1 million people. And so we had some targets, which we fortunately have met. And it looks to reach all across California, to all different backgrounds, all different languages and ethnicities. So it's really kind of a more comprehensive program than we've seen in the past. One of those things that's good for Monrovia is through this program, we are getting a Spanish language program coming that hopefully our trainers will be trained next week. And we'll be able to offer emergency preparedness training in program as part of, or in the city as part of the Listos program. So let's get right to preparedness. There's only so much rah-rah I'm gonna do about where the money's coming from, but it's awesome for us. What we really wanna do is help you get ready, help your family get ready, even help your neighbors get ready, because we're that kind of town. And hold on one second. There, that might be more helpful. And then the four main keys are staying informed, which we'll talk about, having a plan, keeping supplies, and getting involved. So staying informed keeps you from avoiding unnecessary fear and stress. If you followed the city manager's updates about the Bobcat fire, you can see it gave us a lot of information and you can make good decisions. Other cities that weren't giving out as much information, their residents were concerned and looking to us as a city to provide that information. So staying informed is key. Having a plan. What do you and your family do in a disaster or in an emergency? Does everybody know what to do and who to call? And those two first things don't cost any money. Keeping supplies, you have to have enough to be comfortable. You have to have enough to stay ready and take care of yourself for a certain amount of time, which we'll talk about. But you don't have to break the bank doing that. And then getting involved is, how do you help others? And will you help others? And with Mark in our CERT program, he's one of those people who has gotten involved, and he'll talk about that when I'm done. So where can you find current and official information in an emergency or disaster? In Monrovia, we have TV, we have radio, we have neighbors, we have word of mouth, we have local alert systems, we have phone apps, we have websites, so the city's official website, and 211, which is the county phone line that you can call. And that's been used a lot with COVID to connect people with resources. And then other social media. But I really want you guys to think about social media and whether or not it's accurate. That's one of the downfalls of social media. If it's just something somebody randomly posted on Facebook or Instagram, it may not be as accurate. You want to make sure that you're following official city sites and following the information on there. So if you have a smartphone, you can text 91016 to 888-777. That's Nixle. And that is where the city pushes out emergency information only. One of the tricks with Nixle is it will grab all the information for cities surrounding us. So LA County Sheriff will send you things, City of Arcadia will send you things. If you go into this Nixle website at www.nixle.com, then you can refine that so that you're not getting every community event somewhere, and you can refine it down to just Monrovia emergency alerts if that's all you want. Or if you want to know more, then you can pick those things. And that will reduce, I know in the beginning, a lot of people were like, Nixle, Arcadia sends me everything and I'm getting everything from Arcadia. They've dialed that back, and by going into the Nixle website, you can really make that a lot smaller. The other nice thing is you can enter all your family's information, so they're getting alerts also. So you're not the gatekeeper for the family unless you want to be. There's Shake Alert LA. That's the earthquake notification system. There's Pulse Point, which allows you to see on your app, on your phone, where Monrovia Fire is responding. You can pick Monrovia Fire. And that's kind of handy depending on where you live. I live near Monrovia Canyon, so every time fire trucks are blazing up the hill, I want to know, is it a fire or a rescue? And that lets me make some quick decisions about whether or not I need to be concerned or starting to put my family plan into place. So you have your information, whether you're getting that through Nixle or Pulse Point or the city's website. Have a plan. How do you use that information? It should have all the contingencies for everyone that's important to you. You may have a neighbor that really is like your child's grandmother. She's the nice lady next door. She helps you with your kids when you need help. She's important to you. Maybe she doesn't have any other family. You should include her in your family plan, and whether it's checking on her or taking her in if her house falls down in an earthquake or something like that. But how do you contact the people that are important to you? Does everyone in your family that's important to you have all the phone and contact information needed, so that no matter where you are, they can get a hold of you or the person that you should contact? So think about what happens if you are at work, your children are at school, if you're out of town, What happens if you're at church or vacation? Who do you call? And one of the tips that we have is always have an out of state contact. Long distance lines seem to come up faster. Also, that person isn't in the affected area, so they can manage things for you. Everyone can call that person, and that person can collect who's okay, who needs help, who's where, and share that information with everybody. But make sure they know that they are that person, that you'll all be calling them when it shows up. It doesn't, or when something happens. So make sure everyone understands the plan. Write it down. Make sure children have phone numbers. If your children go to Monrovia schools, we do the little pack at the beginning of the year that has, this is something comforting, here's something to do, maybe here's some pictures and a granola bar. Put those phone numbers in there. Those are good to have in there. I mean, yes, the school has contact information, but it's also good to have those in there for your student. Also, that should be in their backpack in case something happens while they're walking home or on the bus. They have that information. So make sure everyone in your group has a plan. It's free, and you can do it this weekend. It's pretty quick. It's pretty easy. You need to have a meetup location if your family is separated. If you're at work and you work far away and your children are at school, how does everybody get to the same spot? For your home, do you have a plan for if you have a house fire and how everyone gets out? Have you thought about your pets? Does everyone know what it means to shelter in place? And that's staying in your home versus leaving your home. And what do you need in your home to shelter in place? And it's a really good calming thing for everyone in your household to have a role. So even back when we had the Madison fire, my son was really young. He was like maybe first or second grade. His job was to pack the things that were important to him in his room. It wasn't a huge thing, but it was what was important to him. And it gave him something to do that kept him focused while we did everything else. And he did a really good job. I was pretty amazed. We talked about it before, and he did a really good job, and it was really, really nice. So we even practice, if we have a home fire, we meet in our driveway. If that's not a good place, we can walk up to the street. Our driveway is kind of long, so we meet at the top of the driveway. And we can do a head count. We know everybody's okay. And if somebody's missing, then we know that and we can deal with that. And practicing your plan doesn't cost anything easy either. It's easy. If you do it twice a year, then everybody's comfortable with it. That makes it faster and easier. So planning is a good thing to do now, and doesn't cost you any money. Things that you need to think about, depending on who's in your home and what their issues are medication, any special equipment and supplies, backup power and refrigeration. Does someone have medication that needs to be refrigerated? Or like in the case of my mother-in-law, she's diabetic and she needs to eat at a regular scheduled time to keep her blood sugar right. So she always has a small cooler that she can throw things in and take with her if she needs to leave the house until things settle down. If you have people visiting, or if you have renters or caregivers, they're people you need to consider in your plan. Do you have mobility issues, or does someone in your family, are they in a wheelchair? And is it a powered wheelchair? Those are all things you need to factor in. Are there language issues? Does grandma speak English? My great-grandparents didn't speak English. And so their kids were their translators. And that put a lot of pressure, and that's very stressful for kids to have to translate. It puts them in the middle of that disaster. So that's something to think about. And then have you thought about your pets? Do you have food? Do you have a crate? How are you taking care of them in a disaster? Who is part of your personal support network? Do you have friends or family that you can rely on? Does somebody rely on you? And I'll show you an example of that a little bit down the line. And depending on where you live, are there special evacuation routes if something happens? if you live in the high fire zone, you definitely experienced it in September. How am I getting out of my area? Have I done it on, am I ready to go? And do I need to know anything special about getting out of my neighborhood? I live on a cul-de-sac and we have a fire gate to another street because to leave on our street isn't a safe thing. It puts us right often in the line of fire. So everyone on the street has to know that a special evacuation route. So, oh, I see. Okay, so here we were talking about people depending on you. This slide was put together by one of my CERT members. He lives here in Monrovia, and his parents live in Alhambra. He's got a little problem. He's north of the 210, and they're south of the 210. He has to think about in an earthquake whether or not he can cross the 210 and where are the places he can safely cross the 210 to get to his parents who rely on him. And here's where I'm talking about being somebody else's safety net and planning for that. You can see he's marked all the spots where you can cross the 210, and he's hopeful that one of those spots will be available to him, that the freeway hasn't collapsed in an earthquake, that he can get to his parents and take care of them. So just something to think about if you have family members relying on you. And children, they look to you for how to react to an emergency. If you're panicked, they're panicked. If you're calm, they tend to be calm. If they know what the plan is and you teach them the plan and they practice the plan with you, then it's just like the earthquake drills at school. Yeah, we're putting our plan in place. That's a kind of plan, and it makes them comfortable with it. And sure, everybody's going to be nervous. Even I get nervous when something changes and I have to alter my plan based on a disaster. So if you have a plan, you can work through it. Make sure your children know home phone numbers and addresses. Make sure they know how to dial 911. We've seen lots of times in the news where children have saved parents and grandparents and siblings because they knew how to dial 911. Make sure they know those family meetup locations and make sure they know how to reach that out of town contact. And it can be as simple as a piece of paper that's always in their pocket or always in their school backpack. And they know if they have that school backpack, they have how to meet up with people. Those are perfectly fine things to do for children. And it keeps them calm and it keeps them relaxed and makes them respond better to the disaster or the emergency than if they just have no clue what to do. Then they're scared. So let's talk about emergency kits a little bit. We've talked about knowing our information and having good information sources. We have talked about developing a plan. So now think about what goes into your kit. This can cost a little bit of money, but it doesn't have to. There's a lot of stuff you can buy online and go crazy building a kit, but really a basic kit just has a few things. And we sent out a disaster ready guide. And on page 5, they talk about a go bag, and page 7 is a stay box, and we'll get into those. They're going to be further down the line, but your home kit just has some very basic things, and think about who else needs a kit, whether it's your child, your senior, your pet, whatever it might be. But it's things you have at home. You really can. It has shoes, some clothes, any medications, and anything else that's important, maybe a second set of glasses if you have that. What do you need if you need to run out the door? We see so often people ran out the door with nothing but the clothes on their back. And this gives you a little something more than the clothes on your back. This isn't meant to take everything out of the house. So some things you're looking at is water for 3 to 10 days. That's a gallon of water per person per day. That's a lot of water. And you need to be careful how you store it. And there's more details in the disaster ready guide. So I'm not going to go into big details on all of that, but you want some flashlights and batteries. You want any important papers. It's nice to have a first aid kit and know how to use it. Some clothing. I've mentioned medications. anything you need for hygiene or sanitation, and some food. Those are important. Batteries, that will let you, for your radio, that will let you keep in touch if you can't with what's going on, even if your phone has died. Think about a whistle. It's easier for people to hear a whistle. Also, you can blow a lot longer on a whistle than you can yell. It saves your voice. We have our all encompassing duct tape. Gloves are nice, any kind of tools you think you'll need, but it's not supposed to be a heavy, crazy pack. This is enough to get out the door in a disaster. So here's some visuals of those same things. And just think about what you need for your family. This adds a few extra things like children's toys and games, your pet items. Cash is a good thing. When the power goes out, credit cards aren't going to work. So cash and small bills is a really nice thing to have if you can stash a little bit away. But you can see these are things that are in your house. You should have some blankets. You have your documents. You have clothes. So just have a few extra things stashed in a bag. Maybe it's something you were planning on donating because it's almost reached end of life. Stash it in a bag so you have something till the next thing you're ready to donate. So one of my volunteers, because we are in more of an electronic age, and he has teenagers who rely heavily on their cell phones and other media, he added this because he thought a lot of people like to keep their electronics going. But this is not something you have to have. This is more a bonus of having portable power. So getting involved, this also doesn't cost you anything. This is about joining the community. As MAP leaders, you are already the type of people that get involved in the community. You're active in the community, you're interested in Monrovia, and you already share that and show that by being part of MAP. But now you can take it a step further if you want and talk to your neighbors about being prepared. We can mail out that disaster ready guide. I have printed copies of it if you want to share it with neighbors. I have stacks of printed copies of it from the state. Also, we're more than happy to send a CERT person to right now do a Zoom. And then once we're allowed to do things in groups, we're happy to do this presentation for a neighborhood group or a family or some other group that you're part of, whether it's a church group or a business group. You can join CERT. You can create your own neighborhood network. We work with the Red Cross on a program called Map Your Neighborhood. And that is more neighborhood based. It doesn't have all the training that goes with CERT. CERT takes about 24 hours, I think 24 hours the way we teach it. But MAP is a little smaller and it's much more reliant on you as a neighborhood taking care of business. And we have some neighborhoods in town that have taken it and really run with it and do neighborhood planning and have a whole neighborhood cache of goods that they can use for an emergency. We have the Listos program coming out in Spanish, and we will be able to do that by Zoom in the beginning, and then eventually we'll be able to do that live again also. And becoming a disaster volunteer, of course, that's near and dear to my heart. That's where I started. I started when I lived in Portland, Oregon in CERT about 20 years ago now, and then brought that with me and was able to join here in Monrovia. And that kind of led to what I'm doing now, which is kind of interesting. But that's another commitment. That's a longer training, and that takes learning a lot of skills. You learn first aid, you learn how to do search and rescue, you learn disaster psychology, and I'll let Mark talk a little bit more about his experiences as a CERT volunteer. But that's Monrovia's disaster volunteer route, is taking a CERT class. And for that, you can take it and have the knowledge for yourself, your family, and your neighbors, or you can take the extra step and actually become an official city volunteer like Mark. So things that you can do that kind of step it up also is using social media. You can take pictures of yourself getting ready. You can take trainings. Of course, the state program wants you to use the hashtag so everybody can see what you're doing. But basically, you've taken this training. You can take more training if you want. You can update or create your kit, get your family plan in order, and make sure that you're on all the right alert notification programs, whether that's by cell phone or email, however you like to do it. So we have cityofmonrovia.org is a great place for information. We have our CERT program. We have Nixle. American Red Cross does training if you want advanced training like first aid and CPR. They also have phone apps. And then FEMA has a great ready.gov website with lots of checklists and all kinds of things you can do to get your family ready. They even have things that are business focused. Monrovia, we were doing a business emergency resiliency training with businesses, which was more about developing business plans and things like that. And when COVID is over, we will bring that back because that's best live versus Zoom. So that's been on hold since March. So my contact information is here. Also, Alex knows how to get a hold of me. And if you're interested in this presentation, a CERT presentation, or taking CERT training, if you're interested in Listos, the Spanish language, or want to know more about the business program or Map Your Neighborhood, just shoot me an email. The phone number there is my voicemail, and it sends me an email with your message. So I'll get that at home because I'm working from home right now. So are there any questions, I guess, from anyone? Because I think that's about it. So I will stop sharing my screen. And I see I couldn't see those before. Oh,
There was
I guess not.
2 questions.
Okay.
Yeah, and since we like to say them live during in front of everyone, so that way, in case anybody can't see the chat box or for some reason, we could at least say those aloud.
Okay.
So for the first question, that one was just more in regard to the presentation. So the presentation will be available, everyone, and that'll be located on our MAP-edu webpage. So if you go to the cityofmonrovia.org /map, you'll see on the left-hand side a tab where you'll be directed to the MAP-edu webpage, and that's where we post all of our meetings, and you'll also get to see this recording as well. So that's in regard to that. But Suzanne, if you want, you could even answer the question that we got in regard to pets. Mark went ahead and answered it by typing it out, but if you want to see it live for those who want to hear it.
Let's see. Pets, I'm seeing something about peacocks and coyotes.
Oh, I don't see that.
From Karen. Hey, Karen, how are you?
Okay, there you go. There's a new one. That's a new one, yeah.
Suzanne,
Okay.
check under answered.
Answered, okay. So what are recommendations for pets? We have a cat and a dog. And now that I see this presentation, we have never thought about a plan for them. So let's see what Mark said. Mark said you take care of your pets for a week or so. Food, medication, a crate, other carrier, leashes, and collars. Exactly. So a couple of other things to think about is a photo of you and your pet together. This is something Brenda Trainer, who has Wonder Dog Ranch, mentioned because she takes in a lot of animals in disasters, is having a photo of you and your pet together is wonderful for placing you with your pet again. Also, anything special about your pet that people need to know, like a note that is attached to the cage, is good to have. And that's the basics of it. I think Mark answered it really well. And then let's see. Okay, and then the other one was yours. So that's it for pets, I think. Oh, open questions. Okay. So Karen's on animal control. That's probably what I would do, unless you have any other ideas. So Mark, is there anything you could add to what I've done?
Well, I can talk about being a volunteer if you'd like me to do that.
Why don't you do that?
Okay.
Because you have a very different perspective. You've done a lot of good stuff. Thanks, Blaine.
Real quick, just so I make sure, did Karen's question get answered?
I'm actually not sure what the question was.
Okay, so
She
let me
she
go
was more making a statement than asking a question.
So it says, Suzanne, hi, Karen Moore here. During the recent fire, we had approximately 2 peacocks and a coyote on our street here on Olive Avenue. I advised our neighbors to go inside as animal control may have been called, question mark. So I guess it's maybe to confirm if that was the right thing.
So definitely going inside. Wildlife, when it's stressed is not as predictable. I mean, that's the reason they're wild. They're not predictable in the first place. But definitely going inside and staying out of the way. And it may be that you need to call animal control to let them know that there are critters running around, unusual critters running around in the neighborhood.
Awesome.
So
I can just add in just a little bit, which is generally speaking, peacocks and coyotes you're going to see them everywhere. And whether you just happen to notice them when there's an emergency or it's just Thursday, they're going to be everywhere. So peacocks, they're just annoying, although they're pretty. Nothing really you have to do. Coyotes, tell your neighbors, keep your pets inside. They're going to do what they do because they're coyotes. And if you call the police aren't going to do anything. And animal control is probably not even going to come out unless there's a danger, because the coyotes are normal and natural in our city. So just taking care of yourself, taking care of your neighbors and your pets in particular is what you need to do.
yeah, and then we have a question from Janine. Is there information on how to safety your home, gas shut off, etc.? There's a couple of ways you can take CERT when we do it again. And the other option is I will check the city's website to see if the fire department has the steps on there. If not, I can get that information to Alex. And maybe when things are live again, we have gas meters and water meters and electrical panels. Maybe we can do something, if you want, Alex, when we can do things live again.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, we can send Mark out to do that. No, I'm volunteering Mark.
I'm gonna share in the chat box. Cal Fire actually provides what's called the Ready Set Go plan. It's a several-page document on things to do before you leave your home. That's what we advertised and published during the Bobcat fire. So I'll send a link here. We might double check to make sure it's on our website too. But that's the plan we use and relied on.
Yeah, I can't remember if the steps are in that or not.
Alrighty. So I think that's pretty much all the questions answered. So then we can go ahead and move forward with Mark. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen so we can have a little slide for Mark.
Okay, thank you.
There you
What I was asked to talk about today was how I got involved with our CERT team as a volunteer and some of my experiences on the team. And I can honestly tell you that my initial inclination and reason for getting on the team, of course, was all the perks. The shirt that I'm wearing is an embroidered CERT shirt. I got that. I got a hat. But the topper on all of this was during the Bobcat fire when Dylan drove me around the north end, chauffeured me around and showed me all the areas that were burning. I thought that was just ultimately the ultimate perk for being a CERT member. Thank you, Dylan. In actuality, of course, I'm just kidding. In actuality, I have a background from a number of decades ago in first responder, and I haven't done that in a long time, in decades. But it's something that has interested me. It's also an interest of mine to do something for the community. I like being a volunteer. I volunteered for many things over the years, and I like doing things for others. So I became aware of the CERT program around 2010. And that was, I think, through the city. But at that point, the city was not actually doing any CERT training because the recession had put a crimp in the budget. So I inquired of our fire department, and there just weren't any in-house trainings going on. So ultimately in 2011, I took the training through the LA County Fire Department. The CERT training is standardized across the country. Now there are regional variations or local variations, but it's standardized. And so when I took it through the LA County Fire Department, it would have been basically the same training that I would have gotten had I taken it through the city of Monrovia. So I finished my training. It is, I happen to do a weeknight program here in Monrovia. Since we've started doing the training again, we've generally done it uh, 3 Saturdays in a row at Fire Station 2. But they have nights programs, they have weekend programs, depending on where you take it. There are a lot of places that offer it. And you can just Google CERT training if you're interested, as well as look on our website to see what we have. We're not doing it at the moment because we're, obviously because of COVID. So I went through the training and then I applied to work to volunteer with our CERT team. And I had to go through a bit of a background process, which if you want to take the classes, you don't have to get background. And you don't actually have to do anything but take the classes, and then you can take that knowledge and go out and live your own life and help help your family. It'll help your neighbors, because it's really good training. But you can also volunteer to work on our CERT team, and you will have to be backgrounded through the city just to make sure that you can meet our requirements. The training is such good training. It's not going to make you into a firefighter. It doesn't make you into a police officer. It doesn't, I've said this before when I've done some of the training, it doesn't turn you into a superhero with a big cape, with that big red S on the back of your cape. You're a volunteer who has been trained so that when there is some type of emergency or there is some type of disaster, or even if there's just some need, maybe your family or your neighbors need something, you have learned how to do things. You've learned how to do, because we do a first aid component that I think is like 4 hours long or 6 hours long. I can't remember exactly how long it is. You're going to learn hands-on first aid. Some of us, although not directly through CERT, we took a tourniquet class. We wanted to know how to do that. We took that because it benefits us as CERT volunteers. We learned about light search and rescue. If there is some kind of a disaster like an earthquake, can we go into a house? If we're called out, can we go into a house and search it? When don't we search it? What if somebody's trapped? What can we do? How do you do levers and get leverage? So we were trained in how to do that. We were trained in, there's so many things. How to use a fire extinguisher. That's pretty simple, but a lot of people, including the people that we have trained in our classes, had never used a fire extinguisher, seen it, but never used it. So we go through this 20 some hours that ends in a scenario where we have done this at Fire Station 2 mostly. And the scenario is there's been an earthquake, for example, and our trainees are now the CERT responders, and they have been called out to this earthquake. And we have the scenario set up. There might be people who are injured. There might be people who are trapped. There has to be searches. There has to be a small fire that has to be put out. We have to have somebody running the team. And the volunteers, the trainees, they do all of that. And they learn how to do all of that, while those of us who are the trainers are supervising and watching so that it's done in a safe and educational manner. It's not a pass-fail. We want everybody to learn something. So the point is, we hope that you are learning what we taught you, and we hope that when we do the final exercise that you'll be able to put into practice in this exercise exactly what you've learned. It's very beneficial. It's kind of intense some of the time, and it can be a little stressful depending on what the circumstances are, but it puts you to the test. But again, it's all supposed to be educational. That's all it's supposed to be. I've been really fortunate in the time that I've been with the program that I am now a trainer, and I enjoy doing that tremendously. Through the program, I was sent to Maryland in order to take training through FEMA. This is a big FEMA program. And so I went to the FEMA headquarters and their training center in Maryland twice. The city sponsored me. I was very fortunate. Got some great training there of how to be a trainer, how to be an administrator. The training was the tops. And this is standardized training. This is the brand new CERT Basic Training Instructors Manual. The training has been revised, so it's very good. You will learn stuff that, in case there is an earthquake, will just help you. You will learn if there's a fire. We learned stuff, doing the Bobcat fire. We learned about how things are done, and some of the opportunities that I've had as a CERT member. So I already mentioned the training that I've gone through. I've gone through quite a bit of other training, mostly virtual online training, dealing with the incident command structure. There is a system, a nationwide system called the incident command structure that is kind of repeated throughout the country. So whenever there's a disaster anywhere, that same command structure is put in place. Now, we're volunteers, so we're not running that, but we're part of that. And for example, during the Bobcat fire, we had the Emergency Operations Center was open. And I think it opened on Labor Day. Yeah, Labor Day. So I was able to come in, several of us from CERT were able to come in to the Emergency Operations Center in Monrovia. Dylan was there. He was sleeping in his office. The chief of police, and I don't mean he was sleeping in his office during when we were supposed to be there. He wouldn't go home. He would stay in his office and sleep there. The fire chief was basically 24/7. The police chief was there 24/7. Everybody, all hands were on deck. So we got to see the actual, how it actually works in real life when you have a disaster like the Bobcat fire, where you have public works is there. We had, it's at the fire department, the police department. We had operations people so that we could get the tools and the necessities that we needed. We got periodic briefings from our fire chief and from other people. We were keeping up on what was going on and make the people that were there, the professionals, were making sure that our firefighters and our police and our citizens had what they needed. And maybe that was something physical, or maybe more than likely it was just information. The city did such a great job under Dylan's leadership of putting out information. It was mentioned earlier. Other cities, Arcadia, Sierra Madre, Altadena, they all went to the city website to see what was going on because our information was out there. But my role as a volunteer was to do whatever was needed. If we needed to have the phones answered, we answered the phones. We needed to make sure we were staffed, that the CERT team had staff for 24/7 for almost, I think 8 days in a row or 9 days in a row. So we made phone calls and we were able to get our CERT team members on standby. Or if we needed them in, we could find out who would be able to come in. We helped take down the EOC and put everything away. So it was a very interesting for me to be there and to see how this works in reality. Even though I've gone through a lot of training, this is actually how it works. And just a funny little thing is, even though we had monitors inside, we had TV screens and we had all sorts of things. There's a camera on top of the police department. We could see what was going on. The way we got the most information was we all stepped outside and looked north, and we could see what the fire was doing. But we were, with Dylan and everybody else, we were on top of things, and our role was to help. Some of the other things that we've been able to do that I've really enjoyed, we'll work first aid booths at various, and information booths at various events, Monrovia Days and things like that, the Christmas parade. I've worked first aid at the robotics tournament for a couple of years in a row. We do fire, a smoke alarm installation in conjunction with the fire department and the Red Cross. Some of the harder things that I've done over the years is during after the mud flows of the Madison fire, I was out shoveling muck. So that was a lot of work. Another thing that was a lot of work after the Madison fire was filling sandbags. And yes, the helpful Honda people were actually there and they helped fill sandbags. So they were very helpful. So it's not just theoretical that we learn this information and we never use it. We do get to put it in place. We do get to use it. We have equipment stored in a big Connex box at one of the fire stations. We have a trailer, CERT trailer that has information that or equipment that we can take with us in case of a disaster. We staged that trailer at the community center during the Bobcat fire in case we were going to need it to roll it out somewhere. So the fire department and the city I think we're valuable. I know we're valuable. The fire department and the city agree with that, I believe, because they've kept us in business. They've funded us when we've needed to be funded. What do we have, 30 people, Sue, something like that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think we're about 35, 40 right now.
So we have 35, 40 people who are volunteers who are on what we would call the CERT team. who, they're on call, they're available. Everybody has jobs, everybody has lives, so nobody's expected to be there 24/7. And so if you're available, it's a group of people who have been trained that we can call on. But I recommend the training, even if you don't become a member of the CERT volunteer team. It's valuable training. It will be stuff that you will take home to your family, you'll take home to your neighborhood, and you'll be able to say, okay, this question came up earlier. There's been an earthquake. I can smell gas. I'm at home. I need to shut off my gas meter. Okay, that's one of the things we show you how to do, is how to shut off your gas meter. We don't recommend you do that in every earthquake. That's very technical, or kind of technical, but we'll show you how to do it. So there's a lot of things that are just useful on a daily basis. One of the questions here, Richard Beltran, when does CERT communicate with our community just lost it, in a disaster event? We don't directly, we being the CERT team, we're not tasked with that, directly communicating with the community. That is the responsibility of Dylan and the PIOs and the fire chief, and those people communicate directly. Now, we may be tasked with, and we have been tasked with at times, knocking on doors. If somebody needs to evacuate, or we want to see if somebody's there, we are tasked with knocking on doors. So we don't directly communicate on a big level, but we may communicate on a one-on-one or very small level as part of an individual task that we have been assigned. Let's see. And then the next question from Sonia is beyond my capacity to answer, because it's talking about potential for mudslides in the winter rains. So I'm kind of finished. So unless there's questions related to my part of the program, I'm happy to answer them.
I'll be answering Sonia's question.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Mark and Susie. This was a bunch of great information. If anyone still has any questions along the way, they'll be able to answer them later on in the meeting, but we'll go ahead and move forward. So thank you again, Susie and Mark, great information. Please feel free to stay signed on so that way if there is questions, you guys are available to answer them. All right, so now I'd like to introduce, actually doesn't need an introduction, but our city manager, Dylan Feek, and he's gonna be giving you guys an update and doing a Q&A. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing so that way he can take full control of the meeting. And while Dylan brings up his presentation, there's just been some useful links being sent into the chat box. So just feel free to look in the chat box to see all those really great links to additional resources.
Great. Thanks very much, Alex. I'll pull up my presentation here in just a moment. One thing I'd like to say to everyone is we just heard from Susie and Mark about the CERT program, but I think what they don't talk a lot about is what they've actually done as CERT volunteers within the community. During the Bobcat fire, one of the first things that we did when we activated our emergency operations center is we set out a table for CERT. It was, CERT is such an integral part to any kind of emergency response that I would want to be part of. And so we had a table right at the front of the room, and Susie and Mark were there, not quite 24/7, but they assured us that shifts would be there, people would be there 24/7. And so for the duration of those 2 weeks that the fire was really bad, from about the 6th until the 19th, we had full coverage with CERT volunteers. It was just impeccable. And even during the nights when some of us needed to go get some rest, there was a CERT volunteer there to answer the phone. We wanted to make sure that when people called, they were concerned, they were afraid, they were able to get a hold of someone with the city's emergency response team. And sometimes it was a CERT volunteer. And so Mark and Susie, the work you do goes thankless many times, but let me take the opportunity just to say thank you for all that you do. It was a wonderful effort and could not have been done without CERT volunteers like yourselves. And there's many others who also participated. So special thanks to them as well. If I could, I'm going to share my screen here and I'll pull up a presentation. Hopefully, let's see, slideshow. Hopefully everyone can see this. Okay, I'm going to walk through fairly quickly. And the hope here today is just give you just some general updates on some city business and probably allow for more time for Q&A. A lot of times people like to ask questions about anything. It could be anything you want. So I want to make sure you all have time to ask me anything going on in the city, anything I can help with. But I have a couple items here that I want to share. And if you remember the last MAP meeting that we had, I was away with family, so I did a pre-recorded video. So I'm very grateful to be with you today. The first thing I'd like to share is just a little bit of an economic update related to the city. Before COVID-19 started and really began impacting us in March, the entire nation was experiencing the longest period of economic expansion in our history. It's since the Great Depression, at least. You know, the job market, it was a workers market. It was really tough to find good qualified help for, you know, everything we do. Revenues, as far as the city was concerned, were you know, continuously growing over time. Everyone was looking at, you know, future expansion. We had 5 large housing projects all under construction or at some part in the immediate period prior to construction. Business revenues were going well. Home sales were going well. It was just it was a unlike any period of time we've seen before. And then COVID hit. And as you all know, and have all experienced these impacts over the last 8 months, they've been incredible impacts. And it's different than anything we've ever seen before. You know, Great Recession. The Great Recession took about 18 months for the recession to kind of end, and really, you know, another 8 to 9 years to kind of build back up to where it was prior to the recession. What's going to be interesting about COVID is, you know, even as we get ready for future safer at home orders, and I will say we should be anticipating another safer at home order from the county. Our daily counts are already exceeding 4,000 positive tests a day. And the county is looking at a 5-day average. Anything above 4,000 a day means they're going to, you know, basically lay out new guidelines. Once we get to 4,500 per day on a 5-day average, that's when we go back to safer at home order. And with the holidays right around the corner, I'm certainly anticipating that there could be a safer at home order again. As part of our response and efforts related to COVID, we've put together a variety of assistance programs, efforts, and really tried to shift the way we do work. So even though city offices have been closed to the public, we've completely changed the way we do business, making us available, you know, on a same regular office hour approach. Things like our police department, we moved to online crime reporting. You can now go online and report a crime. You'll get a phone call from someone. We tried to reduce the number of face-to-face interactions. I think we went from about 60 down to about 20 per day, trying to make that face-to-face interaction less during the pandemic. Things like our library programs. We have a phenomenal library staff that shifted everything to a virtual platform, virtual readings, virtual tutoring. Everything can be, we've expanded our library materials, all available online. You know, everything we've tried to done has been, you know, shifting during the pandemic. And I'm really proud to say that since day one, you know, Monrovia was unique in that we continued providing planning and building services since day one. We wanted to make sure that when homeowners wanted to do home projects, some of our larger developments were going on, we wanted to continue providing those since March 13th, when we issued our own local emergency declaration. The approach that we've taken, and I think this approach is typically something I would want to assume under any emergency situation. But I want to always be seen as you know, an example of how to do things the right way. And so, there was never a question whether, COVID-19 was real or not. It is, it's here. And our duty is to protect our employees, protect the public, address needs as they come up, maintain flexibility. And most importantly for me, financial management. Um, as I watched the businesses start to shut down, immediately for us, that meant business income, city tax revenues would stop. And so we anticipated about a $2.4 million reduction in our revenues immediately, because vehicles are no longer selling, restaurants are no longer serving. A lot of the stuff you buy, like at a grocery store, it's not taxable. Some stuff is, some is not. So we had to immediately adjust our expectations and shift all of our costs. We had to stop spending money on a lot of projects. We froze some salaries. Some employees like myself and our leadership team took voluntary pay cuts to try and address that steeply declining revenues. So, in addition to a health emergency, we definitely had a bit of a financial one. I'm very proud to say we managed it very well. Make a lot of decisions about, right now, let's not kick the can down the road. Let's make them now, own them now. That way we don't have a larger cliff that we're marching towards. We want to communicate effectively, manage expectations, and above all else, maintain our values throughout. So there were times, for example, where we had to shut down city services, but we had all these part-time staff that were qualified librarians, library aides, that were recreation aides and park naturalists. We know that when the pandemic is over, we're going to need them again, even though we may not have work for them right now. We reposition them in the city where we could. And in some cases, we've actually been providing 3 employees over at the Foothill Unity Center since March, helping distribute meals. They needed extra help. We had the staff. And even though it was an extra cost for us, we wanted to be seen as helping address the pandemic in the community. So we had staff supporting the Foothill Unity Center when their demand for services is going through the roof. And so it's a kind of a nice way that we shifted and we're able to maintain our values and how we do things. A little bit about the Bobcat Fire, and here's where I'm going to answer Sonia's question. Bobcat Fire, again, September 6th through September 19th was kind of that really busy 2-week period here in Monrovia where the fire was in town. And by the 19th, it kind of moved away, and there's still smoke on the hillside, still some flame burning, but the immediate threat was no longer present. And so the 19th is when we removed the emergency warning or the evacuation warning, and we're able to start doing damage assessments. About 280 acres of land in the Hillside Wilderness Preserve were damaged. A majority of Canyon Park was damaged. Now, that doesn't mean all of the land within Canyon Park. We didn't lose any structures. Most all of them did suffer smoke damage. Some of them had the Phos-Chek or flame retardant damage. There's some fencing, there's debris, there's trails. Our Monrovia Falls Trail is kind of obliterated. It looks like, just scorched earth up there. So a lot of damage up in Canyon Park. We're going to have to keep Canyon Park closed indefinitely for some period of time. Certainly through this storm season. We may look at what we can do next summer, but most likely it's possible even next storm season. All the recommendations we're hearing is that it takes anywhere from up to about 4 years for hillside vegetation to regrow before we're able to say safely we've recovered from the fire. Our concern is not just about mudslides, but if you were to go up there on any given day, there will even be boulders and rocks that come rolling down the hills, trees falling over, even more recently, not necessarily months ago during the fire. So there's a lot of danger up there, and we just can't have people going up there. I would offer to the MAP leaders, if any of you really want to get up there, give me a call during regular business hours. As long as we're able to go up in my car, social distancing, I'd personally give you a tour. But generally speaking, it's going to have to be closed to the public for a while. We did estimate our damage, total damage assessment, about $7.6 million. That number is going to change over time. A lot of that is just making sure we have ongoing maintenance. We replace the roads or bridges that were damaged as part of the firefighting effort. All of our staff costs associated with the EOC and the emergency itself. EOC is Emergency Operations Center. We need to make sure that we've got get for as much recovery as we can from the incident. And I would point out that in the state of California, storm season is considered October 15th through April 15th. So we're already right at the beginning of storm season. We did have one rain a little bit ago, and it didn't have any significant effect on the city. These maps have been shared before publicly in city managers' updates, and it will soon be providing more formal plans and recommendations to the city council. So there's a lot more information getting ready to become public here soon. But these maps are created by what's called the Burn Area Emergency Response Team, the BEAR team. These folks are engineers, soil engineers, hydrologists who work with the federal government, the Angeles National Forest, and they come out and they do an assessment of the burn area immediately following the fire. The three maps that you see before you, first map shows the debris flow hazard. When you look at all of that dark red, that's immediately north of Monrovia, those are all those hillsides right up above us. And this map shows where there's likely to where the flow hazards are relative to the topography. They're steep mountains, they're right up above us. And so they're going to show the red indicating that this is where the flow could start from. The next map you see shows the debris flow probability. Again, similar to the map before, now it's starting to pull in information about where it burned and what's the likelihood and probability that we're going to have debris flow. That really dark maroon red means anywhere from 80 to 100% probability that there will be debris flow. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to go with 100% probability there will be debris flow. Fortunately, the debris flow volume map is a really important map to understand as well. A lot of the area that did burn, it did not get scorched and torched all the way down through all the root systems. There's still a lot of green vegetation up on the hill, even stuff that partially burned. That's still up there and is expected to still hold. So while we can expect 100% probability that there's going to be erosion, no one is anticipating it to be heavy erosion. And also the other key piece that I'd share is so much of this burn area is up above the saw pit wash, saw pit dam. We're very fortunate that with Canyon Park closed, everything that's going to flow will be captured by the dam and up above the dam. So, there's not a whole lot of work we can do or should do or even need to do up on those upper hillsides. What's going to flow is going to flow, and we can't really engineer our way out of it. What we are going to work on is protecting the buildings and structures within Canyon Park, but also there's a small area at the intersection of Oak Glade and Ridgeside that we want to make sure we've got a plan there because there's some burn area up above that small intersection, some homes down below it. That's probably a greater concern to me than any of this stuff here, is just making sure that our residents are protected. We've got a plan in place for trying to manage any debris flow that we could possibly have here in Monrovia. At our last council meeting about a week ago, council, actually just this past week on the 17th, council approved a Measure K spending plan. I'm excited about this. You all remember a local sales tax measure that was approved back in November of 2019. The measure would provide the city with a significant amount of money in local sales tax, effectively using up what's left to, as far as a taxable rate, according to California law. We basically wanted to make sure that with what available sales tax ability we had, We didn't want the state, we didn't want the county, we didn't want a special district putting tax measures on the ballot. We put something on the ballot for us, so we get to take that money, carve it out, and use it for Monrovia. But anyway, the next through the end of June, we have about $4.9 million in money, and this is going to be an annual thing in perpetuity that we'll be spending. And you can see here on this list all the different projects we're going to be pursuing this year. So building up our reserves, investing in our infrastructure. One I'm really excited about is setting aside some money to develop some partnerships with various groups and community organizations. An example is a couple of years ago, about a year ago, we started a pilot program with Mountainside Community Church to do a community garden. They have done a phenomenal job, and the city wanted to partner and was able to provide some funding. But residents and members of, not members of the church, but leaders at the church have helped build a really cool grassroots community garden program that's already an award-winning program. It's amazing. And so the idea was there's so much talent and excitement, and we got such cool vibes here in Monrovia. Let's set more money aside to do stuff like that. So we don't even know what the partnerships are going to be yet, but we're going to start looking. So if you've got, ideas, if you know people, organizations, please be talking to them. But we're going to set aside about $150,000 this year to try and do some new cool programs. Just briefly, you've probably seen a lot of these, a lot of big development getting ready to start. One of the challenges I've had during the pandemic, during the fire, and even now where we still have COVID very actively impacting things like supply chains, work schedules, work shifts. We got a lot of development still moving forward in South Monrovia near the Station Square. So a lot of different projects, Alexan, Arroyo, Moda, which is already built, the Richmond project, even have at the intersection of Myrtle Avenue and Huntington, the city recently sold land to a hotel developer to put in a Town Place Suites hotel, which has been in discussions for about 4.5 years now. So let me I'm going to blow through these real quickly and just share some of these slides. One, you can see the number of units, but there's about 2,200 housing units that the city's building over the next several years. The Richmond project, which is the one south of the tracks, is going to be a really nice and exciting project. We'll actually install a crossing across the tracks from south across the tracks to the north. The Alexan Foothills is the largest of all the projects, about 436 units. Be very large, very nice. The Arroyo project, again, this one is what makes it a little bit different, is it has a commercial space on the ground level, which we're very excited about. It'll be adjacent to some of these others, but also it's all within close distance from this Station Square, from the Station Square Metro stop. Fifield is going to be the tallest of all the developments. It has a nice, cool little kind of atrium concept. Also has ground level retail. Here's the Town Place Suites concept. So there'll be more documents coming forward here soon. But this hotel will be at the intersection of Huntington and Myrtle Avenue, about 110 hotel room keys, ground level. I think they have a small restaurant. So it'll be a very nice development right here near Old Town, trying to kind of connect Old Town to the Station Square as well. This project will be important in being able to do that. Some other just current projects that I'd like to share so that are out there. We've been working very hard with what we call the Ad Hoc Committee on Equity and Inclusion. This is a council committee appointed to look at practices, policies, procedures of the city to ensure that we don't have barriers to equity, any kind of racism or discrimination. I think the city does a phenomenal job in being equitable for all, but we want to make sure we get, third party, residents coming in and taking a look. It's a public process. You can participate if you'd like. We've been spending a lot of time recently looking at HR policies, procedures, looking at the police department. We're going to go through every department one by one. We had a discussion at the last meeting about converting street lights to LED. It saves in maintenance costs. It saves in energy costs. There's a really unique way to fund the streetlights owned by Edison. However, There's other impacts that we want to make sure there's no concern of. Are there health impacts? What does it do to the lighting? It goes from a yellow to a whiter light. You know, is that good or bad? So it's an interesting discussion to have. In addition, we purchased the city's 6 first electric vehicles, which I'm excited to start and see those at work. We also have an electric library van, which is on its way. We received a grant to fund the full van. So we're going to start transitioning our fleet to an electric fleet. We recently received our tractor-drawn aerial truck. This is a pretty cool vehicle, and I even got to drive it myself. I was pretty stoked. This truck is different and unique in that it actually has like a swivel on it, so it articulates in the middle. And what that does is it allows the truck to be positioned differently, to where when they put that ladder out, they can accomplish significantly different types of rescues. So for example, let's say there's a traffic collision on the side of a road. The way that this articulates and moves, and then when they put the ladder out, they can actually adjust and have that ladder to where it reaches down below the grade of the street. Something that any conventional fire truck cannot do. So it's a really important piece of equipment for a city like ours that's growing, where we have taller buildings coming in. Our calls for service, you know, are not slowing down. This is a top of the line, state of the art piece of equipment that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, our, you know, world-class firefighters deserve and are really going to put to good use for the next 20 years. So we're very excited about it. I mentioned a little bit ago, Bobcat fire damage assessment and cleanup. We're going to be spending time cleaning up the Bobcat fire damage for years to come. And so that's going to take a lot of staff time and commitment to making that happen. We're wrapping up our Monrovia renewal project and already thinking about what's next after that project is completed. We have some major park developments going on. Lucinda Garcia Park Development, we received about $900,000 in grant money to renovate and restore, to renovate and refurbish is the better term, Lucinda Garcia Park. And we'll start doing the design work, the final design work this winter with scheduled construction start time for early spring of next year. There's going to be community meetings. We're going to ask for public input. We've already received a lot of public input, but we want to make sure public support of our final plan. And so we're excited to start that one. E-CHIP is kind of like our homeless displacement response plan for homeless persons. E-CHIP is what we call the emergency COVID-19 housing impact program. We knew there would be housing impacts tied to COVID. And so we've received a grant, and in total about $350,000 in homeless housing grants. We come up with some creative solutions, and this one wanted to make sure we had money available to help needy families here in Monrovia in response to COVID impacts. So if you have any questions about that, you can always reach out to the city. Lastly, kind of a unique program I've been working on, the city staff, but particularly myself. It's called Mobile Point of Dispensing Sites, which are MPODs. We're working with the county to establish a site here in Monrovia at the community center that would be a dispensing site for vaccinations. The model we're currently using is related to, it's an anthrax model that goes back 10, 12 years ago, but it can quickly be adapted to a vaccination like a COVID-19 vaccination. So we want to make sure that when the time comes for that vaccine to come, when it arrives, we want to make sure here in Monrovia, we're able to provide a way to do mass delivery of vaccinations in a safe manner. And so we're already planning ahead for that whenever it happens. All right, I think that's all the slide that I have. This is my contact information. I always publish this is my personal phone number. So you heard me say it before, you can call me any time of day. If you call me at 2 a.m. in the morning, I'll answer. I swear I'll return the favor one day, but that's my cell. You can text me as well. My email address. But I appreciate you spending time with me today. I'm going to go ahead and look at some Q&A, and I'm going to go through and answer some of these just verbally if I can. Sophia asked, while FEMA supports us in the emergencies, what COVID-19 specific financial resource relief does City of Monrovia get, if any? We have not received a significant amount of relief as of late. The two forms of relief we have received came one through, both of them were through the CARES Act. The CARES Act approved money in a variety of ways, but the two that applied to us, one were the Community Development Block Grant Program. Some additional funds kind of passed through to us, about 130,000, very strict in how we can use those. We created a program, provided rental assistance, utility bill payments. We provided money to a couple community groups. Foothill Unity Center was one. I can't remember the other, but it's about $130,000, and that's how that money was spent. We also lobbied heavily to the state of California because in the original CARES Act, money was not awarded to cities under 500,000 people. And a lot of cities just felt like we were given the short end of the stick because we were completely left out. So we lobbied the state, and the state did decide to allocate a portion of its CARES Act money to all the jurisdictions across the state. The part that was frustrating was they still allocated $83 a person to large cities and $11 a person to small cities. So we were very upset about that too, but that's kind of the way it tends to work in California. We received about $600,000, which are used to basically backfill our law enforcement, our fire department, but also all of our emergency protective measures like our PPE. We've had to completely change the way we respond to calls. We also installed protective barriers at each one of our buildings. So when we do open to the public, there's going to be partitions. But that's how we received that money, and that money was specific for operational costs. So that's the response, the FEMA support we've received so far. And it actually technically wasn't FEMA; it was CARES Act funding. How is CERT proactive throughout the year when there's no disaster in our community? I might invite Mark and Susie to help, but they do a lot of work and a lot of training and a lot of preparation throughout the year. Occasionally we have a one or two training activity. There are some times where we ask for help, like calling certain lists of vulnerable members of the community to check in on them. And unfortunately, we've actually had a lot of disasters the last 12 months. So they stay very busy, but it's important that they are involved. In addition to things like the Bobcat Fire, they have provided help and assistance, not just the Bobcat Fire and the EOC, but they also provided help and assistance, in information centers, here in the region, and the community emergency response team is basically there and trained to be able to adapt to any situation you want. So if we wanted to use them for when the mudslides happen, we expect there to be mud flow. We can activate the CERT team with whatever needs we have.
Sure, and I can hop in. A lot of what we do are first aid booths and information booths. You'll see at Monrovia Days or other events. We do smoke alarm installations with Red Cross. We were, before COVID, picking a neighborhood, and we would blanket the neighborhood with flyers and say, we're going to be here next Saturday to install smoke alarms. And we would go door to door with the fire department and our CERT members and install smoke detectors in as many homes as wanted them. And then for special events that need traffic control, we have members that are trained to assist with traffic control. You might see us out when we do Fountain to Falls on street corners, helping with that. And then Dylan mentioned, reaching out to vulnerable communities. When COVID started, we reached out to the city's self-registration list of seniors and people with a variety of disabilities and challenges to make sure that their safety net was in place or what services they needed to be connected with. And then once that part of the work was done, our callers continued to call and provide social bridging, just someone to talk to. So those are some of the things that we do on a regular basis. And since I'm chatting, I know that there was another question from Richard about CERT Spanish team and volunteers. Right now, we do not have a Spanish language cert program. That is one of our goals. We are rolling out that Listos program that is Spanish language preparedness. And what we've learned from Santa Barbara, who actually started the Listos program for their community, is once the Listos program was up and running, then there was a cadre of people who were perfect to be Spanish language cert and Spanish language cert instructors. So our hope is to follow the Santa Barbara model that was so successful, to start with Listos and then roll that into a Spanish language cert. And at that point, as we have Spanish speaking team members, and we have a few Spanish and bilingual people on our cert, but we don't have enough that we can support a full Spanish language program right now. So once we have enough people, then we hope to roll out cert in Spanish and go from there and see how that rolls out.
Thank you. From Ulysses, support email, which thank you. Thank you, City of Monrovia staff, for support of Foothill Unity Center. We are in fact getting a high demand of services at the center. They're also always looking for volunteers and help. So, especially now during the holiday season, we should be thankful for our own health, but at the same time, if we're able to serve others, there's ways we can do it safely, wearing personal protective equipment. If you are in any way part of a you're vulnerable, whether it be health conditions, please don't go volunteer unnecessarily at this point, but just be mindful. It's a really hard time right now. And as the virus continues to wreak havoc, the needs are going to continue to grow for things like food and assistance, even workforce development, getting people, reemployed. There's a lot of demand for service right now. And Foothill Unity Center is a great partner in the community. I just put that plug in as well. Next two questions. So Karen Suarez, we're very grateful you're here. I'm not sure why it says Suarez, but that's Karen on the line. Karen, and the next question from Becky Shevlin. What will the city be doing to mitigate gatherings over 15 people? And generally, Becky asked if we can describe city enforcement of current county and state health orders. Current enforcement is the key there. From a 30,000 foot view, the approach the city of Monrovia has always taken has been, we want to educate and we want to work with, we want to enable people to follow the guidelines. This is about public health and safety. At the same time, it's a really delicate situation. I mean, from my perspective, I remember driving home one day and I saw a kid, his home, the kid had an 11th birthday party and everybody was stopping to come say congratulations and happy birthday, which was during safer at home time, and they should not have had that gathering. And what does the city manager do when he sees that? Well, I consider myself off the clock and I just kept driving home. Because that's a hard one. Do we send our law enforcement up there to go shut down this kid's birthday party? I'm really hopeful, and I have a deep belief that when we teach people correct principles, they govern themselves. And not everyone does, and that's the reality. So we are constantly coming back and talking and restating and working with them. We're using our staff to educate. We still haven't issued any citations. We could if we need to, but the reality is if a family is having a gathering for dinner and maybe they have more than 15 people, or maybe they're dining inside, which is not allowed under the state order, or maybe they have more than 3 families over, I think it's going to be very problematic if we send our law enforcement over to knock on the door when we see all the vehicles outside and we know there's a gathering, and to say they need to disband. I also think it hasn't, I can say, it also has not been challenged in court yet. And there's even some questions about whether the district attorney is even going to prosecute some of these things, like what if someone gets a citation for having a large gathering in their home when they're not supposed to? It gets really dicey, to say the least. So the approach that we've taken has been, and will certainly continue to be, education. Most businesses who want to be open are going to educate, or are going to do their best to understand. We're going to educate. And occasionally the county health department, they're the ones responsible for enforcing They're the ones who come down and issue citations. They're the ones who can close a restaurant or close a business. So we're trying to kind of catch them in advance of the county health department and try and, keep things moving along. And, as we learn to live with COVID-19. So that's this kind of the status of what we're doing. And, please keep in mind, if our law enforcement are very busy. And so, some people will call and say, I saw people on Myrtle Avenue not wearing masks. Does that mean we send our law enforcement out to go stop people, to put our employees, in line and in front of people who aren't wearing masks? Puts them at risk. Those people wearing masks, they know better. We are sending our staff out to try and educate, and many businesses now are even giving out masks. But we're trying to continue to get voluntary compliance. We're not taking a really harsh zero tolerance perspective. We're giving people, we're giving businesses, we're giving everybody as many opportunities as we can. And I find that generally 95% of everyone are doing a really good job. There's those 5% that are just going to be knuckleheads any way you look at it. And so we're just continuing to push. Let's see, anonymous, what percentage and of how many units will be available for low income, moderate housing? Oh, this is back to all the housing developments. We have 55 of those total units are going to be restricted to affordable. So of the 2,200, the 55 is what, 5% maybe? It's not a significant amount. It is, however, representative of a $22 million investment from the developers. One of the challenges for building affordable housing is the city does not have a revenue source. We don't have money to pay for that, to subsidize it. And so we are working with the developers and trying to partner with them, try and make the processing of entitlements quicker, easier, cheaper. We give them certain bonuses, density bonuses, parking bonuses, things the state law allows us to do in order to make the cost of development a little bit less. That way they can put the cost savings into affordable units. So, it's about 5% of the units are affordable. And I'm really proud of that. It's all been, done kind of voluntarily, but it does represent a $22 million investment in affordable housing in Monrovia. A comment about please protect the night sky. Thank you. Great comment. That's been one of our primary concerns related to the LED retrofits. The light fixture that we've asked them to use do project light downward. They do use lights no more than 3,000 Kelvin, which is it's not the most bright bulb. It actually is recommended by the American Medical Association, the Dark Sky Association. We're actually looking to see if we can get something with lower light as well. So it could be even lesser light, less of a white light, more of a yellow light. We're going to continue looking at what options there are, but we want to protect the night sky. We want to make sure it's not causing harm for our animals. We're even looking at some of the fixtures and additions you can add, the shields, to make sure that light in certain places goes directly down versus kind of coming out like this. So I appreciate the comment sentiment, and we certainly will continue pushing to protect the night sky. How do we find out more about the Equity Commission? Great question. You could go online. The city, we've created a web page for them, the Ad Hoc Committee on Equity and Inclusion. All of the agendas are posted there. All the minutes are posted there. You can participate in the meetings every other Thursday at 6 o'clock is when they are. So our next meeting will be on December 3rd. And so if you'd like to participate then, you certainly can. But go on the city's website. That's going to be the best place to find the information. All right, native plants, please. Okay. We did approve a change to our city ordinance just a couple months ago. Anytime the city is planting in the public right-of-way, which are city trees on city property, we did adopt a native tree ordinance. So all the trees and large plantings will be native. I think that was very important. And to one of our residents, Mr. Brian Tyndall, He made that recommendation a long time ago. So if you ever have ideas, thoughts, questions, recommendations, be active, learn about it, research it, and then reach out to the city staff and share the idea. That's what Brian did, and he got an ordinance passed, and council approved it 5-0. So it was pretty cool. With pending rains coming, will the fire retardants use affect our city waters? Great question. No, they won't. There's a lot of research and study on FOSCHEC and how it interacts with water and water systems. A couple interesting things about FOSCHEC. First, FOSCHEC actually has native plant seeds in the flame retardant itself. So when those planes drop it and dump it, and they're dumping it on certain areas, it actually has seedlings which help with the regrowth and regeneration of those areas if they burn. But also, once the rains come, they'll start germinating and immediately start popping up. I haven't been up in the hillsides lately, but I would imagine if we were to go up there after the rain we had last weekend, we would probably see seed germinations and little seedlings popping up. So I think that's really cool about FOSCHEC. Our water, the majority of our water source, our primary water source, is all in an underground aquifer. And so as it goes into that underground water basin, everything, it all gets filtered out, and then it makes its way back up into our water system as we pump it out and then treat it. And so by the time it filters down, it gets removed. And when it gets brought back up, we treat for all kinds of different, we call them constituents. We do a lot of treatments to make sure that water is safe to drink, healthy to drink. So no, it won't have any issue up there. If it were to flow directly into the stormwater channels, I'm told that it is not a concern, and we're not drinking that water anyway. But even if it flows into storm channels, there's no concern to the humans or population. All right, when is COVID-19 going to end? Joseph, if I knew that question, I would be making a heck of a lot more money than I am now. I have no idea. I think we should all expect and anticipate COVID-19 to last for a while. When vaccines are produced, there are not going to be enough. There's not the capability currently today to create, to manufacture enough vaccines for the global need, period. The United States has basically put in a very large order, wants to be first in line to get these vaccines. When they are manufactured, they're going to get a portion. I don't know who makes that decision. Once they come to the United States, how they get a portion to all the different states, I don't know. In California, our governor has already stated that the state of California will do its own kind of review and check of those vaccines to make sure that they're safe for mass distribution. I would recommend that frontline essential workers who are healthcare workers, paramedics, perhaps even like firefighters, hospital workers, and those who are distributing the vaccines should be first in line to get them. So there will be an ordered process for how they come. And even when they come, not everyone's going to get them. We should expect the virus to exist for a while, if not in perpetuity. And hopefully the vaccine will just help us be able to eradicate it over time. But it's not going to be a quick solution. But I don't think it has to be eradicated for us to get back to a more normal life. I think really what it's going to take is those 5 or 6 measures that we had been following. Wear a mask, wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart. All of that stuff. That's what needs to happen in addition to the vaccine. And so we're going to continue to push that plug as long as we can. But I would expect we'll start seeing vaccines distributed probably in the spring of next year. All right, please consider teachers and frontline worker categories. I think let me share a kind of just my own perspective. There's been this, we categorize workers around essential, non-essential as part of this safer at home order. to me, when I think about a community, what aspect of our community isn't essential? I mean, it's essential for us to have teachers, even if the schools are shut down. It's essential for us to have grocery workers. I mean, I tell you what, before the pandemic, I never thought of that courtesy clerk who bags your groceries or the checker at the grocery store as essential workers. And holy cow, are they not among the most essential workers in the whole workforce, right? The folks who are working at manufacturing plants and processing toilet paper, bottled water, the food products we eat. So however we're going to categorize it, however it's going to be determined, I think what's going to happen is we're going to see an interesting process get laid out that we've never seen before in distributing mass vaccinations across the country. And I think some states are going to do it differently than others. Some communities are going to do it different than others. We're going to try and get those vaccines to as many people as quickly as we can, which comes back to the effort we are already undertaking on creating this MPOD, this mobile point of dispensing site. So whenever they come available, we've got a plan in place to be able to administer vaccines broadly to the public. All right. Okay, well, I've answered all the questions. You've all got my email. You've got my phone number. Alex, I'm going to turn the time back over to you. But first, I just want to say thank you all very much for listening to me talk. If you ever have any questions, you ever need anything, don't be bashful. Reach out to me anytime. Thanks again for participating and letting me join you today. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dylan, for answering all those questions. Really appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead. We are lucky enough to have our 2 officers in attendance. So we're going to go ahead and introduce them. Let me just share my screen real quick so you guys can see their faces and names. So here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and invite up our first, which is our training officer, Agent Travis Ortega.
Hi, everyone. My name's Agent Ortega. How's everyone doing? Good?
Tell a little bit about yourself, how you just became an agent, what an agent does.
Well, I've been in law enforcement for, I'd say, about 6 years. Prior to coming over to the Monrovia Police Department, I worked for the LA County Sheriff's Department at Twin Towers Correctional Facility. I was there for about, I'd say about a year and some change before I went to the Metropolitan Courthouse. I was there for about 2 months before I lateraled this way to the city of Monrovia. Since I've been a part of Monrovia, I made the SWAT team. So it's a regional SWAT team. I've been on the team for about 2.5 years. And I recently, I'd say 2 weeks ago, I just took the assignment of becoming an agent. There's several duties as far as being an agent, but one of the primary duties is being a field training officer. So I'll have the responsibility of, I guess, guiding the new trainees into being a good officer or just being a well-rounded officer. So I'll have that responsibility with me. And yeah, and I've been wanting to be in law enforcement since I can remember. One thing that stuck out to me as a kid is I have an uncle who works for the Modoc County Sheriff's Department that's up in Northern California. And he retired there as a sergeant. And just what I saw that the community, how the community really, really respected him and, adored him and really relied on him and were very nice to him. So that's what drew me to this career. Okay.
Thank you. And just so you guys know, this part of our meeting is very important to us as you guys get to know our police officers, old and new. So just wanted to share that before I invite up our next police officer, Nicole Spada.
Hi everyone, I'm Officer Spada. I'm the newest officer here at Monrovia. I was a cadet for about 2 years before I started. So before that, I just was going to school, studied criminal justice at Cal State San Bernardino, went to Citrus College in Glendora, got an administrative in justice and as well as journalism. Along the path of journalism, I learned that it's not really for me. Did a couple ride-alongs with Azusa PD actually, and I absolutely loved it. Just wanted to do something, you know, for the people that was good. Worked at Orange County Crime Lab for a little bit before I came here, and I learned that this is a path that I wanted to take in life. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Awesome. So those were a couple of our new officers. So if you see them out in the community, be sure to say hello. They're not strangers or anything like that. So please feel free to say hello. So thank you guys. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with the next part. So I'm going to go ahead and invite up Lauren Davidsmeyer, and she's going to go over some upcoming virtual MAP events.
All right, hello. All right, so we're just gonna go over a couple future events. So on December 1st, our new leaders are going to graduate at a city council meeting. We'll be sending our leaders, our current leaders, information on how to join that day so that they can support our new graduating class. We have 16 adults and 21 youth. And then going into 2021, January 23rd, we will have our next MAP-edu meeting, topic to be determined. So go ahead and send suggestions to our MAP email listed right here. That goes for March 27th as well, an additional MAP-edu, which will be right before our 11th annual MAP Neighborhood Conference on April 24th. So if you guys have any suggestions for the MAP-edus, go ahead and send that to our email. We'll have more information available for our conference when it gets a little bit closer. So we'll go into the next right here. So we have our MAP leader birthday. So any birthdays that fell from our last meeting to today, this is your time to shine. I think we have one birthday today when I was looking. I want to say it's Eric Bridges. I don't know if he's in attendance, but it's his birthday. So happy birthday. But as you can see, we have a lot of birthdays in the fall. And then we have our raffle giveaway. So our raffle giveaway was sponsored by Home Depot. It's a 2-person emergency Ready America kit. It's for 2 people. It includes food, water, first aid kit, flashlights, face masks, gloves. And so we randomly selected 2 winners. I believe they are logged on. So it is Susan Pilcher and Deborah Synott. So you 2 won, so congrats. So if you guys could send us your address to our MAP email, we can go ahead and drop those off and have a contactless delivery to your house so that you guys can get these cool giveaways. Yeah, and so then I'm gonna pass it back to Alex to close this meeting out. So bye guys.
So those raffle giveaways are all thanks to Lauren. She was the one who called Home Depot and talked to them, and they were like, yeah, of course, come on by, get some raffle prizes. So thanks to Lauren for getting that together, and to Home Depot for providing that for our attendees. Okay, so we just wanted to remind you guys to have happy holidays before we see you at our next MAP-edu meeting, which will be in January. So keep an eye out for what that topic may be. If you have one that you want to hear about, share that with us. And there's also going to be a survey for you guys right after this meeting where you guys can share that feedback. And also if you wanted to sign up to our MAP email list so you can stay on top of all the different events that we have going on, both for MAP and for local events occurring. So with that said, that is the end of the meeting, unless there are any more questions that we did not get to. Okay. So sorry, Pam, that we didn't see yours. It says, to the new police officers, welcome. Please contact us at the Monrovia Historical Museum Foundation per personal distance observing and face mask requiring tour of the police exhibit. I'll definitely share that information with them. That sounds really cool. I want to join. But thank you so much, Pam. And then Deborah, woohoo, I won the raffle. So congrats, Deborah, enjoy. And Larry Spicer, Councilmember Larry Spicer, thanks staff. Thank you for attending, Larry. And then Carol Lawrence, thank you. Of course, no problem. We're happy to be here, happy to serve you, and happy to constantly provide you with trending information occurring. So until then, I will just say, if Dylan, Suzanne, Mark, if you guys have anything else, then we can say our goodbyes. No? Okay. Everyone have a good Saturday and be safe out there, okay? Bye.